Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Playbook for Leaders and Entrepreneurs. Today, I'm beyond excited to welcome an absolute powerhouse in the world of ultra running, Alyssa Clark. When I first read her bio, I had to read it twice just to be sure I'm reading it correct because it's that unbelievable. So here it is. First female finisher at Canyons Endurance Runs by UTMB, a brutal 100-mile race through the relentless Sierra Nevada mountains and one of the most competitive ultras in the world. First female finisher at Hurt 100, a notoriously technical and punishing race through the dense jungles of Hawaii where extreme humidity, rugged trails, and endless elevation. First female finisher at Moab 240, a 240-mile race that tests your endurance across the deserts, mountains, and canyons of Utah, featuring over 29,000 feet of climbing, which is, guys, close to summiting Mount Everest. Guinness World Record holder ran 95 marathons in 95 days, setting the women's world record for consecutive marathon distances. Also, three record holder for 350-mile Pinoti Trail along the rugged Appalachian route. Also, women's champion in Ouray 100-mile race, often called one of the hardest 100-milers in the US, with over 40,000 feet of climbing at extreme altitudes. These aren't just races, these are some of the most grueling races and difficult ultras on the planet. And Elisa doesn't just compete, she wins. Beyond her racing career, Elisa is also an accredited sports and performance specialist, a fitness expert, worked at the US Navy SEAL base in Italy, and a dedicated coach helping others unlock their potential in endurance sports. So, Elisa, I'm truly honored to have you on the show to deep dive into mental toughness and get to know you a little bit more. So, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you. I'm gonna hire you to be my hype man. That was fantastic. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you so much. So, Alyssa, I want to know, how did you get into ultra running? What's your story? A little about your personal life as well, so our listeners can get to know you a little bit more.
Yeah, so I grew up in a very small state of Vermont, on the east coast of the US. It is called the Green Mountain State, so I kind of grew up surrounded by much smaller mountains than we have out in the west coast, but nonetheless very challenging, very rugged, very humid, very muddy and technical. And so I grew up in a very adventurous family, and just I had two parents who were endurance athletes, and I didn't even really know what the word endurance meant, but that was just kind of a way of life of, yeah, we go hike, run for 15, 20 miles, or go bike across an island. And yeah, I got really lucky in that regard, that I think it was just a part of my life from a very early age. And then I read a book, Ultra Marathon Man. I feel like you either there was kind of a stage where you read Ultra Marathon Man or Born to Run, and that was
Born
kind
to
of
run.
the, yeah, everyone has one or the other. Those are the gateway drugs for us. And I read that when I was 10, and I was like, I think I'm going to do that someday. That just, I don't know. It's just I'm going to do that someday. And for some reason, it stuck in my head. I was a college lacrosse player, but I just loved the endurance side of things. So I was like, I've always been an athlete. I've always had structure. A lot of athletes really struggle coming out of college when all of a sudden, like, they don't have a team, they don't have a program. So I was like, oh, I'm going to run a marathon. And then I still had that idea of ultras in my head. And so I went, maybe I'll run a 50K. And so I bought a book, Howard Kroner's Guide to Ultra Running. I followed the 50K plan, and 2 months after graduating college, I ran my first 50K and haven't looked back since. It's just kind of become my life for the last 10 years.
Wow, amazing. And what really drives you to keep pushing your limit year after year? Because you never stop, you just keep on adding races, signing up for races. What really drives you to do this?
I think that I am always chasing, like I say, I'm always chasing the edge of my potential. And I believe, like, every time I think I've gotten a little bit closer, I want it to move further away. And so I think it's it's always trying to reach what what is possible. And I think that's what's so fun about these longer distances is there's so many variables that it's almost impossible, like it is impossible to have kind of that like perfect race. And so I think it's just fascinating to always be able to give a little bit more, to figure out the logistics a little bit more. And so I'm just fascinated by seeing what is possible. And I actually was asked one time, what do you think your best race performance has been? And I have said that I don't think I've had it yet, or I hope I
Oh,
haven't
I
had it
love
yet.
that.
And
Yeah,
so I think it's a curiosity, it's a passion, it's a way for me to connect with other people. And it excites me every day to have a goal to work towards and to try my best every day at something.
amazing. And I think I read one of your articles as well where you mentioned when you were young, you were hospitalized for some reason, so you couldn't run. That was a part of your that drove you. If you want to elaborate on
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I have ulcerative colitis, which is very similar to Crohn's disease. It's an autoimmune disease that basically it attacks your digestive system. And so when I developed it when I was 10, and it wasn't too bad, and then it got a lot worse. When I was 14, I had emergency surgery and then had to have another surgery, and was really, really sick. Just look out um, the windows of the hospital room and look at the mountains and be like, I just want to go out there. And I felt very confined when I was in the hospital, hooked up to things. And so I've spent a lot of, well, I feel like that led to this fear of confinement. And so I tried to outrun it. I was like, I'm just going to keep running further. How far do I have to go? And it changed, and like that's actually not a really healthy place to be running from. That's fear, that's uncertainty. And so and trying to overcome kind of what happened. And somewhere along the way, I I was able to change it from trying to outrun something to trying to run with something. And so I was able to turn my relationship with running as, to be honest, kind of based in a place of fear into based in a place of gratitude and an expression of my love and thankfulness that I get to do what I do, because it doesn't really make sense. Like, I don't have a colon or a large intestine, so I don't absorb things as well, which seems like, I mean, we all know ultra runners are notorious for having GI issues, and it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I think it also makes a lot of sense because no moment in ultra running is as hard as the hardest moment of my life living through that. And it's perspective every time where you're like, oh, this is really hard, this hurts, I'm not sure if I can do it. And then you think like, oh, but I've done harder things, I've been in tougher positions, and you're like, this is just running. This is just silly. I choose and I get to be here. So I think that is, it's like, for as many reasons as it doesn't make sense, for so many other reasons and more, it does make sense.
Yeah, 100%. Life is perspective. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all we're doing is just going out in the mountains or in a beautiful path and getting to do what we love for hours at a time. Like, that's not so bad.
Yeah, definitely. And also, one of the articles nicknamed you the Slog Queen. So tell me, where does this nickname come from, and why do they call you that?
Yeah, so I did an FKT out, or a fastest known time, which is just like a record for trails.
Yeah, 350 miles.
Yeah, that one. Uh, I did another one in up Mount Whitney, which is the
Oh, okay.
highest point in the U.S. And
Wow.
it's just kind of a slog. I mean, I think it's like 11,000 feet of climbing. Um, or maybe or something. It's something, a lot of climbing. It's just like you're grinding uphill. And my friend owns a mountaineering store at the bottom of Lone Pine, or at the bottom of the mountain. And he had these hats called Slog hats, because so much of that area of the mountains, like there's no infrastructure like there is in Europe, where you can take a lift up, where like you can get a coffee on your trail. There, it's all just like really huge approaches. You're running miles and miles and miles without any support or kind of out or anything. And so we say like in that area everything's just kind of like a slog. Like you have to be willing to just slog it out and get through it. And so after I did that Whitney FKT, I was talking to my friend, and they had this hat called the Slog Lord hat. And I was like, well, but what about women? Like that's a guy. What about where are we? And so we came up with the idea of the Slog Queen.
Yeah.
And so I drew like a little design for the hat, and then now the Slog Queen hat exists, and I kind of um, developed that nickname from there. But I think it's just celebrating that hard work is often just putting your head down and doing it, and just putting in the time and the effort. It's not glamorous. It's not like wow, these incredible moments. Those happen based off of putting in just the everyday consistency.
And you also mentioned like the unseen work. So I want to know more about what do you mean by the unseen work? If you want to elaborate as well.
Yeah, well, I think of that as um it's like today I have an hour and a half like pretty easy run. And I think so often when we don't have those kind of like key workouts, we're like, yeah, the we're gonna go out on the 4 hour run, we're gonna crush it, or we're gonna get all this vert, or we're gonna do intervals. It's those moments in between where those hour and a half runs where you're just you're putting time on feet, you're getting in that work, like those are actually the ones that really add up. It's easy to do the glamorous work, to say like, oh yeah, I crushed those intervals. Um but it's doing that over and over and doing all of the in between things. So it's the things you don't post on Instagram or LinkedIn, or that it's that moment. It's also choosing every day to say yes to what you really want, regardless of, like there's always a chance on race day that something happens. You get a stomach bug, you mess up your nutrition, you trip and fall, there's always ways that things can go sideways. But I think when you've put in the work to do your best, regardless of how it goes, that's something to be really proud of.
I love it. Unseen work. I'm going to take this away for sure. And so, what's your advice for someone? How can they develop a strong work ethic? If they have no work ethic at all, how can they improve on it?
Well, I think it's choosing something that matters to you. I mean, I think that if something doesn't matter to you, then you're not going to do it. I mean, that's just kind of human nature. And so I always say when I'm helping, well, first of all, no one can do it for you. You can be motivated, but it has to come from within. I have coaching clients where it's frustrating because they'll say they really want to do it, but then they continuously demonstrate that the work to reach their goal is not, it's not something that fits in their life or that they really enjoy. And so to me, I'm like, well, then that's not the right goal, because clearly this is something that the process is not worth the outcome. And so I'd say with hard work, I think it starts by choosing something that matters to you. And so I have people who apologize to me for not liking running, and I'm always like, there are 8,000 other sports. You do not have to like running. Like it can be pickleball, it could be biking, it could be rollerblading. Find something that inspires you and that makes that like helps you to want to do that work, that's worth it to you. And I think from there, it's okay, this is really worth it to me, and then slowly building those habits into it.
Great answer. Thank you, Alyssa. I want to know more about your Hurt 100 race because you recently completed, and congrats as well. You came first in that race. Well done.
Thank you.
So, can you walk us through your experience on Hurt 100? What were the most memorable highs or lows of the race for you?
I mean, Hurt is a race that is very near and dear to my heart. We used to live in Hawaii, and it was my first 100 miler there. I mean, it's my family there, and so it really matters to me. It I and I think the one of the things for this year in particular was I was going into it with the goal of being the first woman to break 24 hours, which hadn't happened before. The course record had stood for 15 years before this, and so I was planning to go really hard for the whole race and just kind of see what happens. So I think one of the more memorable moments, I was maybe, I don't know, 45 minutes into the race, and I saw one of my friends and I yelled out, we're being brave today. And I feel like that kind of set the tone for the race of like, I'm racing braved. I'm putting my best foot out there. I'm going to try hard, like probably harder than I ever have in some ways, for longer. Like, it's not that I was reckless, but I was definitely, um, so often in hundreds, it's like, oh, start slow and then, try to negative split or speed up. And this was like, I'm going to try to go hard and see what it's like to
Amulet.
do that for 100 miles. And so I think that moment, coming in, well, picking up my husband to pace me for, the almost the last, like, he paced me for a 14-mile section. I had 7 miles after that. So getting to run with him and share that experience with him. And then I think just like the whole race was cheering for me to accomplish this goal. And so every time I would pass someone, they'd be rooting for me and just like, making every effort to give me their power. And that was just so special. And every aid station, they were just so excited and like giving hugs to people that just that yeah are my family. And so I feel like it's almost hard to say one moment because it was so many moments. And I didn't really let myself believe that I'd done it until maybe a quarter of a mile um, to the finish. And I think finishing and kind of seeing like not only did it mattered tremendously to me, but it felt like I accomplished something for us, for a community that wasn't even sure if that was possible for a woman to do. And it was like my way of showing my gratitude and love for honestly the place where my ultra running career started. And so that was really special to see that like it mattered, it did matter a ton to me, but it also mattered to a lot of other people. And that felt another level of special because I've always been drawn to working for things that are greater than myself because I'm not enough of a motivation. I other people like doing things for other people and for something that may not even seem possible, like that's what gets me going.
Wow, so inspiring, Alyssa. And how do you prepare for these races mentally? What's your routine, and how can we or practices that you do to prepare mentally for a race?
Yeah, so I actually work with a mental performance coach now, which has been a really big game changer in the last, I think we've been maybe like 9 months or so. Um, and he we just do a lot of work about letting go of ego, of letting go of expectations and who your 9-year-old self thinks that you should be. Because a lot of where our ego comes from and our insecurities are actually from childhood development, not so much like things that we control now. So we, have a traumatic event or we have a learned, like learned coping mechanisms or things like that influence us for so long. And you're like, oh my gosh, crazy that this feeling developed from your childhood. And not that to say, like, some people had very traumatic childhood, some have had less so, but we all carry things from that, and perceptions of ourselves. And so we spend a lot of time of letting go of that and being like, okay, did you do the training? Yes. Did you do the training to the best level that you could? Yes. In the situations you were in. Okay, are you standing at the starting line with your body able to do the thing that you wanted to do? Yeah. Of course things can happen. And so it's just getting your mind out of the way and letting your body do what it trained to do the work that you've put in. And so I say a lot of times, like, be here, stay here. So don't project and don't ruminate. Don't think about what happened in the past, because you can only change what is happening right now. That's all you have control over. And it's actually just way more enjoyable because you're so in the moment. And so yeah, I have worked a lot on, instead of, like, it's not that it doesn't happen. It's not that these patterns and behaviors that you have just go away like that once someone tells you that they exist, but it's
Yeah.
more of recognizing them and realizing that they don't have power over you. Like, you have control over how you feel about yourself, how you think in a race situation, how you feel during training, how you feel when someone else, you know, like, how you interact with someone on Instagram or LinkedIn. Like, you have the power over that. And so I think that just recognizing some of the behaviors that feel like maybe we can't control them, we can. And that's been a huge thing in racing, is like, control the controllables, let go of what you cannot control, and trying to figure out the difference between the two of them. So yeah, a lot of that actually. Um, Something like, my old coach, he used to have me practice a lot of visualization, and I actually really don't anymore, because I find that it puts a projection on what I think should or should not happen, or what could or couldn't go out, whether it's positive or negative. And so I really kind of stayed away from that, because it doesn't give me the opportunity to be in the moment of what's happening. And it's not that, and I do think visualization works for a ton of people. I just find that if I spend too much time living in the future, then I can't accept what is going to happen when it's actually happening.
Wow, that's so powerful. So I have two questions on that. So firstly, do you have any meditations that you do before starting the race that helps you be in that peak performance state so you can just focus on what's going on, stay in the present?
It's probably unintentional meditation in some ways, but my friend has said this before, because she's crewed me a couple of times at Hurt. She's always like, you get eerily calm. You're like so calm. It's odd, because I'm a very, like, uh very outgoing and, like, up in, probably at, this is why I run so much, is I always tell people, I'm like, if I were not 15, 20 plus miles, or like 4 to 5 hours of training deep, like, you would not be able to stand me, because I have a lot of energy. So I'm knocking off the top level of energy so I can exist in society and not drive everyone nuts. But she's like, you're so calm before races. Like, that's always, I can always tell you're going to do well. And it's because I've learned my, like, process of, okay, I'm going to make sure I give myself this time to set this up. I know I'm going to be I know I'm probably going to need some time to correct things. Like, you always forget something the day before, whatever. So, like, I start packing 2 days before, or I start, like, doing my drop bags, things like that, 2 days before. And then I have the day before to kind of, like, make sure everything's together. I shopped 3 days before. Like, I just have my process that's kind of like, okay, we're getting into race mode. So I think it's being very intentional about how I'm laying things out, how I'm preparing my gear, that kind of gets me in the mindset. And then also just, it's like you're letting go and accepting, like, I have done the work, there's nothing more I can do. It's just time to run. And I get a lot less anxious about it, because I think of that mental piece of like, I trust my coaches. I trust that they have put me in a position to do my best. We've put in the training, and now, like, it's just time to show what you've done. It's like
True.
there's just so much less variable and so much less um fear, because you put in the hard work.
Yeah. Nice. And I think you shared an amazing point of like having your surroundings ready as well. That helps you basically be in that state. Okay, race day is coming. Makes sense. 100%. Um, the other thing I want to ask you is visualization, since you mentioned it. So I think one of the podcasts you said like you also negative visualization you do that really helps you if anything bad happens in the race, you're ready. So what do you think about that instead of positive visualization?
Yeah. I was actually just reading Michael Phelps' book last night, and he also practiced negative visualization of like, my
Hmm.
goggles get filled with water. And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I know, right? My old coach, yeah, definitely, he would be like, okay, imagine when everything is going poorly, because we always want to imagine kind of the dream scenario, and it never happens that
Yeah.
way. And then you can be so thrown off if you're like, oh, well, this is how it went in my head, and now it's not going this way. I have no backup plan. And so I think that negative visualization gives you a backup plan. It also helps almost like prepare you for perhaps the emotions that you're going to feel. So I used to do that a lot more. I do it less now because of kind of what I was saying of how I stay in the present moment. But I do think it's super valuable if you are someone who responds well to visualization, to make sure you are not just envisioning everything going perfectly. Because truly, like, that just, I mean, I can't think of a single race where that has been the case. And ultra running is, I mean, it's why as you get older, often, I mean, we see so many athletes who are later, later 30s, early 40s be so successful, is they're so good at responding and adapting to what is in front of them, versus, because it's going to happen. There's too much time. I mean, in a 100-meter dash, in an 800, like, there's just, there's not a lot of time to make any corrections. It's happening or it's not. But yeah, when you're out there for hours and hours, I mean days even at times, things are going to go wonky, and you got to be ready for that wonkiness.
Yeah, definitely. And a perfect transition to my next question. In Hurt 100, when you're running, you thought you broke your toe. Like, tell us about that experience and how did you stop that negative voice in your head as well? Oh, my toe is broken. What's going on?
I just lost that toenail like 2 days ago. I was like, oh, finally. Like, I'm fully recovered from hurt. The toenail's gone. Yeah, it kind of goes back to staying in the present moment, where I've developed in many ways a mindset of there's two paths. There's, can I fix it? And if so, how? What am I going to do about it? Can I fix it? No. Shove it. Forget it. Like, I cannot change it.
Love that.
If I obsess over it, it's just going to feel worse. And so I was coming down, I was like, oh yeah, that hurts a lot. Okay, well, there's quite literally, like, I'm not stopping to, you can't put a splint on a toe. Changing shoes wasn't going to help me. Like, there really wasn't anything that we could do in that situation that was going to make a difference. And so I went, okay, well, it doesn't matter. I mean, I also draw a lot off of other ultra runners that I really look up to. And there was a woman who came in third at UTMB last year, and she fell and dislocated her finger really badly. And so, and
Oh,
she still came in third. And so I
oh
was like,
my.
oh, well, if she can run having dislocated her finger really badly and come in third at UTMB, I can forget that this is happening and just keep moving forward. And I do think there's a lot to be said about how probably your adrenaline dulls that pain response, because it did really hurt for a few days afterwards, like pretty badly. But yeah, you're just like, I can't change anything. I'm not going to stop. I mean, obviously, if you do have a serious injury, like that takes priority. But I didn't think that this was a situation where it merited stopping or taking much thought about it.
Yeah, great answer. I think it's perfect on what you said, like things we can control and things which is not in our control. So if I can fix it now or not and just forget about it, keep moving
Yeah.
forward with that. Nice. Another incident happened as well where your both headlamps started failing. So how did you push through that setback as well?
Yeah, well, it seems to be a pattern. I know so many people who are like very experienced who've had headlamps die at Hurt. It just seems to be the thing. But yeah, well, at first I was like, you idiot, why did you, like, you know better. You should have thought that through more. Um and I set them to the lowest setting, and I knew I had my phone as a backup. I knew it wouldn't be as good, but I think that part of why we love ultras is because there's a lot of magic in them too. And there's a lot of time for things to happen that we can't predict. And I the old race director, Big John, he passed away. He's like the heart of Hawaii ultra running. He's such a legend. He's done Western States, he's done like all of them. And he founded the race because he's like, Hawaii needs a 100-miler too, so don't have to keep flying away from the island. And so he and his wife founded the race. He passed away 2 years ago, and his ashes are scattered up in this area, which is kind of right where my headlamps died. And so I had been kind of, when they had said at the pre-race, like, if you need help, Big John is there. And so I had kind of been talking to him in many ways. And however you want to believe, like, something was coming in my head that didn't seem like my own voice. And so I said, Big John, I promise I'll set the course record if you just keep my headlamps going. And they kept working. And then there's one section on the trail where if someone's starting a loop, there's about like maybe a mile and a half, 2 mile section where you run together. And the guy who was in second, who I'd never met before in the race day, like didn't know him, he was running with his pacer, and I was alone. And he came out right as I was coming down, and so he came out in front of me, or came out right behind me, and we were running along talking, and his pacer was like, hey, you're 17 minutes like up on third place, which is quite close, in a 100-miler. And I was like, oh yeah, do you guys want to get past, like, no, I did say my headlamps had died. And I just hear him go, Tyler go, no, we're staying with Alyssa. And yeah, I was like, oh cool, I'm running fast enough, like this is great, like this gives me a little bit of confidence. And then we're talking, and he was just like so kind. He was like, wow, I can't believe you're doing this like without a pacer. Literally did he know that I was picking a pacer up for just a little bit, but he's like, I can't believe you're doing this, you're such a badass. And he knew of me, and I had heard of him, but like, yeah, I'd never met. And then as I'm like going to turn down and he's going to continue, I was like, you have no idea how much you helped me. Like I like you, because he was lighting the way for me from behind, and he's like, I know, that's why we stayed with you, now go get the record, like be safe going down the hill and go get the record. And it was just, I think it's such a testament to the community, but also how, like, truly I felt like I was just a vessel for people just wanting this to happen, for people wanting to believe that a woman was capable of doing it and of breaking 24 hours. And his kindness and belief in me, and like I said, how like everyone in the race I think was cheering for me to do that. I mean, it's like, how do you not do your best when you have that behind you? And so that was just such a special moment where I just felt like, yeah, there's no way I'm gonna give less than everything I have.
Wow. I literally have goosebumps, Alyssa. That's such a amazing story. Wow.
And we're friends now, so
Oh, nice. Yeah. And that's such a great of Tyler as well to like run with you with the headlamp. And yes, and like you said, the ultra community is amazing. The running community everywhere in the world, they are so cheerful. Um, the another thing that you mentioned, this is my favorite. You said this is what winning feels like. So tell me, where does this come from, and how do you use it to push through pain in ultra running?
yeah, well, that comes from my mental training coach. He is the one who told me about it before actually UTMB um, this past year, and it to me it means that I think we so often think that there's kind of like this uh insane like mythical human being that wins these races and they don't feel any pain and it's not hard and they don't suffer anything like that. And the truth is that's not at all true. It hurts for everyone. It's not it's not glamorous. Like, so many times you'll see someone cross the finish line who's won and they're like cramping and they can't talk and they are just like absolutely dying. And it's just the reminder that winning is hard and gritty and challenging and like slogging. And it's a reminder that winning is ugly, and that's beautiful. And so when I was throwing up throwing up with about 6 miles to go, it hurt. I was walking forward because I was determined to keep moving forward as fast as I could to get the record. I was saying out loud like, this is what winning feels like as just like projectile vomiting. And it just makes you laugh, and it makes you feel like, yeah, we can do hard things. We can give our best, and giving your best is not that it's easy. It's worth it. And winning can mean, if in this situation it did mean winning a race, but it's not. It can mean whatever you want it to. It can mean winning a workout. It can mean winning, you know, uh, like winning for yourself, for getting outside, for um drinking a little bit more water, whatever it means. It can be very applicable to whatever you need to win that day.
We spoke as well before we hit record when I was running and my calves were paining. I said, "This is what winning feels like," and I kept pushing me as well. So I love that saying. And actually, I was reading this, listening to this book, Born to Run, and I know you have heard that as well. And in the line they say about the Leadville 100 race, that they have a slogan which says, "You're tougher than you think you are, and you can do more than you think you can." So, what do you think about that? Do you agree? Disagree?
I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, it's I think that these sayings are. I was actually talking to another runner today about this, where um I think these sayings, like, they hit every one of us a little bit differently, and so you kind of have to like pick the ones that really resonate with you. Because there's certainly ones that I'm like, yeah, that's incredible, but it doesn't come to my head in the tough moments. And there's other ones where I'm like, yeah, that is like
Yeah.
truly turns me. It clicks with my brain in a way. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that what's been really interesting in the evolution of endurance sports. And I mean, so we see so many records going down all the time, it feels like. And I think that it's because people have truly put on, I mean, the technology is better. Like, there are a lot of reasons, but it's also because people are putting themselves out there. They're saying, like, yes, from the starting gun, like, can I run 100 miles hard? And that is, before it was like kind of more of these, hey, this is an adventure, which is a lovely, like, I kind of miss that in some ways. And now it's like, hey, can we race 100 miler, you know, at the mental capacity almost of like a marathon or a 50K. Not can we get through this? It's like, no, can we challenge ourselves every step of 100 miles? And I think that that's a pretty incredible evolution to be at, of like, holy cow, I can't believe we're doing that. It's also really scary because it's very hard. But yeah.
100%. And talking about 100 milers, let's elevate it to 240 miles. So I want to know about your Moab 240-mile race. So can you share your experience running for Moab?
Yeah, well, I had gotten pretty excited about the idea of 200 milers. I've always loved just this concept of going for days and days. I just think there's something like weirdly romantic about just, like the footpaths where you just go and you end up and you see all, like, end up in these new places and you travel further than what people think is possible, and you get to live these lives out there. And so I was really drawn to the 200s for a period. And Moab it's this massive loop. Moab's a beautiful area of the US, and I that one just kind of really stood out to me. And so I think one of the funny things about 200 milers is like we were saying with 100 milers, like, people are kind of like, you're racing from the start. And with 200 milers, you have a, and I do actually think they're going to get to the point where people are like really racing the whole thing. I think we're close. But you have so many chances to be reborn. And so actually the first part of Moab, there's a 24-mile section without water, and you're playing the
Oh, wow.
game of like, how much, I don't want to carry all the weight of the all the water, but if I don't bring enough, I'm going to be super dehydrated. And I was super dehydrated, and so then you can't eat. And so I got into mile 50, like, it's not even a blip on the radar of how big it is, and was just laying on the ground. My legs were convulsing, like, I was cramping, I felt terrible. And I was like, I'm not gonna quit, I'm just gonna, the medic came over and was like, yeah, you're fine, just drink some more water, eat some food, take a second, like, get it back together. And I did struggle with eating, well, most of the race, but I would say that I felt better from mile 120 to the finish than I did for the first 120 miles. So you just have so many chances, I say, to like be reborn, to live again, to rise from the ashes. And I think that that's really exciting, um to know. Like, I think sometimes, like, we all have moments in races where it feels like maybe this is the end, maybe this is the thing that's going to take me out. And with 200 milers, it's like, nah, you're fine, just take, like, sleep a little bit, refuel, drink some water, you'll be good. And so that was really fun. I do not love the sleep deprivation. I think at Moab I probably slept, the longest I slept was a 45-minute nap. And then I did like anywhere from 5 minutes to 15 minute, just like asleep on the trail, dirt naps. So
How long did you run for?
I ran for 71 hours, I think.
Okay, wow. And you just left 45 minutes. Crazy.
Yeah, it was rough. It was very rough. It's why I've been a little bit scared to get back into 200s, is because um the sleep, it's painful. I mean, you get to the point where you're not really aware of what's around you because you're so tired, and there's just big chunks of Moab that I don't remember really because
Wow.
I was so tired. So I do, yeah, there's a part of my brain that's like a little bit scared of going into that place again. Like 100 milers is like, yeah, I'm tired at the end, but staying up for just 24 hours or so is pretty reasonable. Like you're gonna be fine. But multiple days at a time is a lot.
Yeah, and were you hallucinating as well? And do you remember what
Yeah,
you were seeing when you were
yeah.
hallucinating?
Moab, I hallucinate um animals, luckily like cute fuzzy animals, and then people and like kind of towns, which I'm really lucky because some people get really scary hallucinations. I do not. They're generally like very friendly. I'll see like panda faces and stumps. I'll
Wow.
see, there's one race I was seeing bears wearing like bow ties and like tuxedos, which was quite funny. Moab, by the end, we were running along a dirt road and I was hallucinating like um camping grounds of people, and I'd be like, "Oh, is there a tent there? Like there's a van there and there's like all these people." And then you just kind of like come to and go, "Oh, nope,
Oh
there's
my
no one
God.
there." Yeah, it's
Crazy.
odd. It's kind of, yeah, your brain is trying to fill I've never really gotten a complete answer about it, but supposedly your brain is trying to fill like memory gaps or something along those lines. And so it creates these images. It's pretty wild.
Wow. Yeah, can't believe it. So were you waving at the bears? Were they waving back? Like
Um,
it's
I would have to ask my pacer and be like, "Is there a bear with a tux on right there?" And she'd be like, "No,
uh,
that's a stump. Like, you're fine." Um, I don't
oh
think
my
I
God.
really I don't think that I necessarily like interact with them that much. They just kind of like exist with me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, quite fascinating. And you also came first in Moab 240, and you also came first in Hurt 100. So how did you approach these two races differently? Did you approach Moab differently with a more strong mindset, or vice versa?
Yeah, well, Moab, it's funny because it was now, was it 22? 3 or 4 years ago. And so I feel so young, being like, wow, I was so young when I did Moab. Like I had so much to learn. And so I feel much older now just because you gain a lot of experience in that time. I would say I went into Moab. I I I went into Moab like quite determined that I was going to do the best that I was capable of doing. There was no like, oh, I'm gonna drop or I'm gonna stop. Like I was just like, this is what I'm doing. I'm gonna finish this. And so I think that I went into it quite, yeah, to be honest, it's funny that you bring those comparisons because they were actually quite similar. I like think of myself as like young and dumb when I did Moab and I didn't know what I was doing. And truthfully, I actually had that kind of unwavering, it's almost like I don't really care what the circumstances are, I'm just going to do it. And
Love
it's
that.
not that like you don't have flexibility within that, but you're just so like, yeah, I'm ready to do this. I'm capable of doing this. It doesn't matter what comes up. I will handle it and I will keep doing my best. And that actually was pretty much the same mindset between Moab and Hurt.
Nice one. And I love that mindset, by the way. And in Moab, were there like moments where you felt like quitting? And what really pushed you through that as well? There might
Moab,
be many, I'm sure.
actually, I think not too many moments that I thought about quitting. there were really hard moments where I would actually say Moab, I didn't think about quitting really at all. Hurt, I did think of once, and then was like, nah, no, it's just because it's early, you're fine. Uh, because I was very set on it, but there are moments where you feel a bit helpless by just how much more you have and how you feel, where you're just kind of like, I have no idea how I'm going to do this, but I I'm just that's kind of where it's important to shift back to the like, well, what can I do in the present? I can't project how I'm going to feel in 50 miles. That's an unknown. You could feel better. I mean, I think it's also keeping this kind of ever present positivity. I always like to say, like the saying, it almost always never gets worse when you're at a bad moment. Where you're like, it's probably not going to get worse. It could get better. That would be great. And I think with 200 milers is that there's actually a lot of opportunity to feel better than when your lowest moments are having. Like people go from, I can't run, I'm in so much pain, and then they get enough food, they get some sleep, maybe they change shoes, and all of a sudden they're running again, and they're running better than they were before that. And so I think that's a really exciting part of 200s is that um you have like you can feel better even when it kind of feels like you have so much left, like how do I even comprehend this?
Mm. And what did, like, when you're racing all these long races, you're alone with your mind. So what's your self-talk like? So do you talk to yourself like keep pushing? How important is self-talk when you're doing ultras?
Yeah, I mean I think it's almost everything in many ways. uh I kind of mm, I'll listen to like I actually listen to audiobooks when I race, ones that I've already listened to, because they help me to kind of get, if I'm feeling like, oh man, I'm being really negative right now, and I'm too tired to really like push myself in a better direction, I put on an audiobook because it snaps me out of my own head. And I'm like, okay, I'm in a story, I'm engaged in that regard. People do that with music. I just find music is too, it gets me too excited with too much time. Like, it's great for a shorter race, but for me, it's like I can't be like hyped up, with
Yeah.
10 hours of running to go. I've got to be a lot calmer. Um but yeah, I think I don't know, sometimes I'll be like, okay, brain, just shut up, like we're just gonna run. And as you kind of get in the flow of things, I think your brain does quiet down, but it's also just kind of like constant um system checks of like, okay, how does my body feel? Like, do I need to drink something? Do I need to eat something? Um, like that's kind of always going through like, okay, how does this pace feel? Does this feel sustainable? Do I need to increase? Do I need to decrease? So you're kind of doing those, which takes up a lot of brain power. But it's also, yeah, I mean, I think when things get hard, you kind of go into this, like for me, this is what winning feels like, is one that I use, be present. Um, and you kind of get set in those. But yeah, I find that just try not to overthink it too much, because I think that's where we can get into trouble and convince ourselves that we're not feeling good. I think sometimes too, it's easy to be like, this section just sucks. Like, I'm just not going to do this section. It's like, well,
Yeah.
you have the next step to turn it around. So I think trying not to throw things away too early as well.
Also remember, going back to your Hot 100, you said when you started the race, people were overtaking you, but you told yourself, okay, don't worry, I'll overtake. I get hard or tough in middle of the race or something like that. If you remember, I
Yeah. Yeah. Hurt, or yes, someone passed me at Hurt, just like absolutely flew up a hill, and I was just so demoralized because like, oh my gosh, how is he moving that quickly? And I'm just completely left behind. But for me, it was like, okay, but this is the effort that you can put in right now. This feels sustainable. Like, that isn't sustainable for you. It was for him, it wasn't for me at that moment. And so I think it's just letting go and realizing that you have a lot of time. Like, there's so much time for things to change, and if you stick to your plan, then it will go the way that you need it to go.
Of that. And what did these both races, Hurt 100 and Moab 240, taught you about yourself, both as an athlete and as a person?
I think that it I guess for Moab, I think Moab was this is funny to say, but like the first race that I went all in on believing in myself, and that when I went all in on believing in myself, good things happened, and that of performing at I was capable of performing at the level that I had always thought was possible, but had been too afraid to actually like really go after. Um and to be honest, I think Hurt was kind of similar, where I said, "Hey, this is what I think I'm capable of doing, and I am going to believe in myself enough to go all in on it," which is scary because it's vulnerable, and if you mess up, I say that in quotation marks, then it's like, well, maybe I can't do that. Maybe I'm actually not as good as I thought I was, that I told other people I was, that I told myself. And it's okay. I mean, it's amazing to go after big goals. But also, if you don't put everything into believing in yourself and you have one foot out, it's also a lot easier to come up with excuses where you're like, oh, well, this happened or that happened, versus when you go all in, it's like, yeah, maybe I just didn't have it that day, or maybe that wasn't possible for me. And that's a scary thing to admit, but it's also, I think, scarier to live your entire life wondering if maybe you could have done something if you just tried to
Exactly.
go all in, and um not knowing if that was possible.
Very true. Great. And Alyssa, since you spoke about setting goals, you always set big, lofty goals. You share it with the world. So how do you do that? And why didn't like, if you fail at that goal, people might ridicule you or you didn't achieve it. So how do you really set lofty goals, share it with the world, and not care what everyone thinks?
I think that, I mean, they are big lofty goals. I would say that I do share them with some, like, I do share them, maybe not as much as I possibly should. I feel like I say them to certain people and then I'm like, I'm not even sure I should say that. And then I get in a little bit of strength and a little bit of like, okay, my training is going where I think it's going. Um, I think that it's because the people who would maybe ridicule me, I've come to realize just don't matter. It's like, if that's what you choose to do with your time, is make fun of someone for going after a big goal and maybe falling short of it, like, that's it's not really worth having that person in my life. And so I think that you just have to, and the people that do matter will be there for you 100%. I mean, that's what happened to me last year with Madeira. I ended up dropping out and I was so upset. I felt like I just let everyone down. I let myself down. I felt like I just didn't belong. Um, and people were checking on me left and right to be like, are you okay? We care about you. Like, you matter. And I think that when you surround yourself by good people, and when you make connections, like, those people will show up no matter what happens. And the people who want to make fun of you, like, I wouldn't be friends with you probably anyway. So yeah,
Love
but
that.
it is scary. It's super scary.
Yeah.
Um, but also it also ties to like, where is your worth coming from? And I used to tie my worth so much to results, and now it's like, well, I'm a lot of other things in life than just whether or not I won that race. It would be amazing. What an incredible thing, but that doesn't define my existence. It doesn't define people who actually care and love about me or love me, because it's funny how when you do really well in races, people come out of the woodwork and all of a sudden become like your best friend, or
Best
they try
friends.
to, and you're like, well, this is kind of weird. Like, I don't think you would be there if another result had happened. And so I think that it can get very exciting, and you can get really caught up in um, living that high when things are going well. But just kind of staying within like the core of the community that will be there for you no matter what that up or down is. I think that really helps to um at least keep me like grounded, and also reaching and saying like, yeah, I'm gonna try this out, like I'm gonna go for it.
Love that. And you mentioned that you dropped out from one race as well. So can you share like how do you go through DNFs and how do you push through failures as well?
Yeah, I didn't handle that one very well. I was just super sad. It was also realizing that I needed to change coaches, that like a lot of pieces were not working. So it was kind of the tipping point of a lot of other things that I needed to fix, which I think is why it was so hard. Um, but I think it depends a bit like why the DNF happened. I think they're all hard. Because you always wonder what if. Yeah, it's giving for me, it's like, okay, I give myself some time to be mad or like sad that that happened. Um, I talk to my community, my team. They tell me to you're fine, like everything is fine. This is part of it. And then you use it as a data point. You use it as like, okay, there's no good or bad information, there's just information, and you take that and you apply it to the future. And to be honest, there's like, when I think about races I've DNF'd, or even races that I didn't start even though I thought I was, like every single opportunity that has come after that has almost been like what has changed my life the most, which is kind of insane. Like, I was going to race in Croatia in 2000 or 2023. And then I got sick, and so I wasn't able to go. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to try to get into canyons. Like, I didn't even know if I was running. I literally switched from the 100K to the 100 mile the day before
Oh,
the
wow.
race. And they're like, no one does this. No one goes up in distance. I was like, well, I kind of like the 100 miler better. I wasn't trained to run that race. Like, I literally didn't know I was actually going to do it until the day before. And then that race was truly like kind of a game changer for me, um results wise. And it's like every year I've had, and then last year I DNFing a race that led me to a new like a couple of new coaches, a whole new pattern. And so every single time I felt like, oh my gosh, this is just the worst. Like, I'm so mad at myself, I'm so upset over this decision. It's led to incredible growth and learning. So that is truly, I think, if you're just patient enough and are willing to dig into what that information means, they can be really good things.
Yeah, finding lessons in failures. Exactly. Amazing, Alyssa. I think that's everything. I'm so honored to have you on the show, and it's been so insightful. I've learned so many lessons. I'm pretty sure our listeners had so many takeaways as well. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This has been super fun.
For our listeners, I'll link Alyssa's all social media handles in the show notes so you can check her out and follow. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, make sure you comment below what's your biggest takeaway from this episode. I've really enjoyed, Alyssa. Thank you so much once again.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.